it feels like Marvel itself wasn't really like planning out what they were doing with this franchise. And it's definitely showing more now. Like, it's definitely showing way more now that we're getting like into the thick of it. In game and not in game of Doomsday and all this other stuff that Marvel never truly planned anything past Endgame. And it does kind of suck because there's a lot of good comic book characters that we still have not seen. A lot of good comic book characters that we just haven't had a chance to like fall in love with. And Marvel is kind of just screwing the pooch because they've invested all this time, money, and energy inside like these actors, and they want to capitalize on these actors' fame and fortune. So it's kind of like the Hollywood business is kind of interrupting with the comic book world, and it's not the best. But with that said, we're still getting all types of crazy. We're still getting all types of crazy news. We're still getting a bunch of leaks. And one of the leaks that we got was the fact that the X-Men are back. And as you can tell, like Cyclops is in his full gear here. Cyclops is in that classic 90s outfit. But this article from Variety says, hey, the X-Men are officially back in live action. The third teaser for Avengers Doomsday has been placed in front of Avatar, Fire, and screenings and have been released online. And it marks the return of Fox's X-Men characters. So we're going to be getting Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, and James Marsden as their original characters. And it looks like this trio will be our look into the X-Men. We might be getting a little bit of that like Deadpool and Wolverine. Actually, let's scroll back. So real quick, the X-Men are back. They're going to be in Avengers Doomsday, and it's been official that the original 1999 slash the original timeline X-Men will be kind of the blueprint. We already know for a fact that Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Magneto, and James Marsden Cyclops will be back. And this actually might be the universe where that Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine came from. Maybe an offshoot of that universe. Some people think the rumor is that like this might be a universe where Scarlet Witch herself is the anchor being and she's already like destroyed most of the mutants. But it's cool because you get to see the X-Mansion destroyed in this trailer that's been airing in front of, Avatar. You get to see the X-Mansion destroy. You see Cyclops do his big beam pop. You get to see Xavier float in his chair, and it's very reminiscent of The Last Stand. There's a lot of cool stuff that you see. You even get to see a couple of Sentinels, something that has been like really iffy in the live action movies. But it'd be really cool to see these characters come back. Casey Grammer's Beast will be there. We get to see Nightcrawler. And I'm pretty sure this universe is also the universe where Monica Rambeau was left in at the end of the Marvels. So I'm happy to see that they're tying it all together. I'm happy that the little tidbit at the end of Captain Marvel wasn't just for nothing, but I'm still not super hyped. I am going to hold my judgment until Doomsday drops. And I know that time between Doomsday and Secret Wars is going to be magical time for all of us. But Marvel, for me, actually has a lot to prove. And I'm going to see how they prove it moving forward. Speaking of that same note, speaking of that very same like reminisce, I didn't know we were getting a Tomb Raiders TV show. Yeah, y'all, like Amazon Prime, which, I kind of get because they're getting to the point where like The Boys is ending. They also have Invincible that's kind of in the middle of their like production cycle. That's kind of like, I want to say they're on season 4, and I think the creator wants to get about 8 to 10 seasons out of it. So it's actually time for Amazon to start, dropping some new blood before their old blood runs out. And it's really cool to see that Tomb Raider is joining that lineup. I'm trying to see, there is no official release for this yet, but it does look like it will be coming out later in 2026. Live action stuff like this only take a few weeks to film, but just like 3 months to film and about 3 months to edit. So they could cast someone. I think they already or they're looking for someone like Sophie Turner. Looks like she might be in the mix to be playing Laura. But this would be an interesting, fun show to watch. Tomb Raider is one of those classic female icons in video games. Not too revealing, but not too like armored up. Nice, a cool looking woman with a cool job, looking for treasure, stopping bad guys from messing with history. And she's just an icon. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with her. This might be a cool way to tie some other PlayStation properties together. It'd be nice to see maybe this be a little like mini verse with like Nathan Drake. But this also is another thing, like this being a thing when the Nathan Drake movies did so wrong, I think they're going to take those mistakes and build off of them. An action adventure show is not hard to do, and there's a lot of Tomb Raider lore to work off of. Let's see what else. What else we got? We do have the death of Robin Hood coming soon, so let's yap about this. And I think this is a little more. I more want to talk about this because of what it stands for, not so much hype for like Robin Hood, because I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It's not like I sit here and wake up in the morning and be like, Robin Hood's one of my favorite characters ever. But it is nice to see that A24 is deciding to put some money in like some classic literary characters. So quick little summary. A24 has released the first full trailer for Death of Robin Hood. And this is going to be like the actual like accurate story of the death of Robin Hood. I guess literally there is like a canonic story to how Robin Hood dies. And A24 is taking a chance to tell that story. The film features Jodie Comer as a mysterious woman who is trying to help a Hugh Jackman Robin Hood at his deathbed. It shifts away from that traditional adventure story and is going to be telling more of like a somber character study about Robin Hood. What does it really mean to be a thief that steals from the rich and gives to the many? Later, going to tell a bit about the merry men. But it's also going to tell a little bit about like the origin of Robin Hood. He was a thief before. And it's going to tell that story about like, what do you do when you are kind of are responsible for a lot of like pain and hurt for being like a thief and stealing from people who need the money. But what do you do when you turn your life around? What do you do when you want to be a symbol of good? And I think this is A24 has amazing storytelling. They usually get a really good team around it. So I'd be really interested to see them take on the death of Robin Hood. And on that note, just let these movie studios have more control over like these literary characters. There's a lot of literary characters, a lot of like old classic stories that we could be redoing. Moby Dick. We just talked about last week about how the Odyssey is getting a theatrical movie, just a full on like pageantry. And that's what they should do. Like, stop trying to redo comic book movies. Stop trying to redo comic book movies so often. Do some classic books. Do some classic literature. And y'all, that is kind of like the end of our current events section. So let's talk about the things that I watched this week. Honestly, this week was a pretty cool week for me. I really focused down on watching like the Vince Staples show. I watched JJK this week. I watched One Punch Man season 3. I watched 100 Meters, the movie on Netflix. I did a lot actually this week, and I'm actually really proud of myself. This next week, I'm definitely trying to get into more of a rhythm of like watching stuff and making sure that like content's always ready. But this was like the first week that I really had to challenge myself on like making sure the breakdown was done. And making sure that I'm watching things, not just to watch them to tell you guys to watch them, but to enjoy them, to make sure that when I'm watching like something like the Vince Staples show, I'm getting the point, I'm getting the message, or at least being entertained and not just watching it to reverberate my opinion or whatever I thought was nice. But as we're talking about the Vince Staples show, real quick. So Vince Staples has dropped his season 2 on Netflix, and honestly, pretty fire show. Once you guys don't know, Vince Staples is an LA-based rapper, entrepreneur, loosely associated with Odd Future and Earth Sweatshirt, and honestly one of the realest men to ever do it on the mic. I often talk about like the spirit of like gangster rap, the spirit of LA music. Not everything has to be like hood, like in the hood, but when you're talking about like being hood adjacent or living in the hood and not truly having like gang affiliation, Vince's music really puts you in that mindset of like, yo, I was from a poor neighborhood. I did grow up in a poor neighborhood and I was not gang affiliated, but I still was a tough person. Like I was still a tough dude. And Vince really like signifies that like, I'm not a gang member all the time, but just don't mess with me. Just don't think I'm a chum. And I honestly like the way that his show depicts this life of being like a young black rapper, a young black man. If you guys don't know, like the Vince Staples show is on Netflix, really good show, kind of like a satirical comedy. But to be honest with you, the Vince Staples show, season 1, when I first watched it, gave me a lot of like Atlanta, but in LA vibes. And you guys don't know, Atlanta is Donald Glover slash Childish Gambino show on FX. This kind of like surrealist look of like black culture. Because we often see a very gritty, a very like realistic version of hood culture, of gang culture, of black culture, but we never see like this in the moment surrealist version of it. This version that like we have in our mind. Like, what if I'm try to throw hands at me at the middle of the rental car place? You never know when you might have to just get down. And it takes a surrealist approach viewing the world. I really do like how in season 2, Vince really more focuses on about family. He focuses on about his mom and his sister, especially at a time where like his uncle is dead. And this and season 2 really like holds on to those core themes of family, black fame, and the cost of balancing them both. It's really crazy that like in this season when you watch like Vince's uncle is dead, and you're learning all this things about his uncle, who was like a very talented football player, who then got accused of some really heinous stuff. And no, he was a athlete turned movie star turned quote unquote like he was accused of doing something he didn't do. And you kind of like see in the aftermath of the man's passed away. The man was part of like a secret society of black actors. And you're seeing like what the system does to protect, like what the system kind of does to make sure that black men do not fall victim to like false accusations, false legal stuff. And just like the balancing of like, hey, his legacy is tarnished, but his team was trying to protect him. The secret society of like was trying to protect him because they know how messed up things are. But I don't want to get too long into it. I want you guys to check it out, like the plot points itself. The characters that work in this is amazing. Vince kind of plays like in my opinion, a little too passive towards the beginning and the middle of the show. But once you start getting the plot a little thicker, he definitely takes more of an active role. He's less of like this, I'm just letting the world happen to me type character. And I do like when Vince takes a little more of like a dominant role in the show. I understand that this is kind of just like life happening, but I need the narrative to like pick up a little bit more. But yeah, the themes of this season was pretty much just showing up for family when they really need you. Not so much just being family in the words of being like just a name in itself, or letting people get away with the mess that they're getting away with. Family is about holding each other accountable when the world won't. And that was a very powerful message that I got towards the end of this season. The visuals and the sounds are always fire when it comes to Vince. Like this is like very Atlantic-esque. A lot of the times when like you think we're getting into a very dangerous situation, it gets really somber, cool blue lights. And then the action set piece, which there are a lot more in this season, are really tense, really high impact. You don't see a lot of like random gun work done with civilians, and it's really cool to see it. But yeah, the Vince Staples show season 2 was a really solid watch. It keeps you engrossed the whole entire time. Even though I will say my only real negative was you get kind of lost in the sauce in the middle of the season. But once you kind of get what the story is trying to tell you, it's all gonna be like, that's why we were doing weird things in the underground bunker. And honestly, if you haven't had anything, and to be honest with you, if you're missing Atlanta by Donald Glover and you kind of need a surrealist look in black culture, the Vince Staples show is here to stay for a little longer. I really hope we get a couple more seasons. Netflix really sees the good that this show does, but I like this. Give black artists more weird things to talk about in our lives. Let us explore the nuances of the evolving culture in more subtle ways. Everything doesn't have to be gangsta, gangsta, gangsta. The hood is a scary place, and not just because you might get shot. It's a survival every day of the week. And Vince Staples show lets you know that, hey, yo, protect your neck when you out there and don't have people have you messed up. Okay. So that was the Vince Staples show. I really did like it. I might end up doing like a whole breakdown on it once the show is over. It's not one of those shows that has like a giant narrative or a big boss. But wait, on that note, we are also going to talk One Punch Man. And I thought I had like my notes for One Punch Man. Or I had my notes for One Punch Man. Let's see. This is why you label everything, y'all. Remove. Let's try. gosh. Where did I put it? I swear, it's going to be one of those things where, like, it's on my iPhone. Look. Oh, and if it's on my phone, iPhone, it's just on my notes. There's so much. I got to tighten up the show. You know what? Yeah, let's talk about One Punch Man, because this was, honestly, in my opinion, like, one of not the best seasons of anime this year. So if you guys don't know, One Punch Man has come out with their third season. And season 3 is probably their most controversial season yet. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of hard not to like talk mess about it. Like to just be dead honest with you. It's kind of hard not to talk mess about how bad the season was. And for me to kind of really be like on it, to really explain to y'all what I'm feeling, I think I'm going to do an off the dome. One Punch Man breakdown. Not breakdown, but review. Because I was thinking about it during the week, and I was wondering why this season sucked so bad. And if I am going to be a betting man, and I am, I'm going to chalk it down to 3 big things for the One Punch Man season 3 and why it kind of felt lackluster. And actually, I'm going to give an honorary mention to the theme song this season. Honestly, One Punch Man season 3 was kind of a lackluster season. Hey, I'm Marz. I do quickie little reviews about TV shows and all that good stuff. So if you guys are catching this little tidbit on YouTube, hit me with a like, hit me with a follow. And I really do want to talk about One Punch Man season 3 by comparing it to its other seasons. So one, if you guys don't know, One Punch Man is a Japanese anime TV show based off the webcomic written by One. One is a very good mangaka. He has written 2 really good series that I've enjoyed. I have read most of One Punch Man. Really good story. I have read and watched all of Mob Psycho 100. One of the most beautifully done animes in the modern era. And I definitely think we need to hit a major, like, if I could find a thesis statement for that show, I would do a breakdown on that show. But ever since, for the last 9 years, we have gotten like 2 or 3, we've only gotten 3 seasons of One Punch Man. That first season dropping in October 5th, 2015. And it was honestly one of the greatest first seasons of an anime. It aired 12 weeks in a row. It told the story of Saitama, and it got us like familiar with him and his cast. And honestly, when we got to that final episode, knowing that the premise of the show means that this guy has to defeat most of his guys with one punch, that last episode really did do a lot to hype us up for like One Punch Man season 2. And we knew it was gonna be a long time for season 2 because I don't think the company knew that the show was gonna blow up, but season 2 dropped. Now, between season 1 and season 2, One's other manga, Mob Psycho 100, started getting animated too. And I believe because Mob Psycho 100 was already done being animated, I feel like as like whatever the team that made a decision decided to put all their time, money, effort, energies in making sure that Mob Psycho 100 was completed animation-wise, that One Punch Man was kind of was put into the wrappers. Mostly because One Punch Man is not done as a manga. It's still being written to this day. And it does tell a very deep story. I think it's also only monthly at this point. But I don't think it's really done being told. Like, I think it's in a hold up. It's like 2 arcs down right now from the anime. So season 2 dropped. It was real good. I think between 2 and 3, Mob Psycho 100 season 2 and 3 dropped and finished out that story. So, people were ready. People were excited for One Punch Man season 3. One Punch Man season 2, the animation was like, no, One Punch Man season 2 did receive some criticism because the animation dropped in quality at the beginning of the season. But the animation quality, in my opinion, picked up real quickly. And by the time we got done with season 2, the animation was back on top. Now, season 3 dropped 6 years later, and these gaps between these seasons are getting deeper and deeper. Season 1 was 15, season 2 was 19, and season 3 was 2025. And due to the ratings of the season, I don't know if we're getting a 4. But season 5 is just not that well received of a season. On just the chatter, on the criticism on the internet and Reddit, people are making fun of the animation, making fun of how the story just feels lackluster. And I may have made this comparison in another review a couple weeks ago, but these seasons that feel like they're setting up for the bigger narrative always kind of fall flat. But I don't want to get too much about this rambling. I want to make this clearly about three things. One, One Punch Man season three's animation quality has gotten worse. That is number one. Two, this story does not have an emotional anchor to it. Unlike the last two seasons that kind of had at least two beats, both one for Saitama and one for an auxiliary character, this season doesn't do that well, anchoring us into like why we should care about these next steps. And number three, that final fight sucked, honestly. And for point one and point two kind of lead into why that final fight sucked. But let's get into it. The animation quality. The animation quality this season is trash. And I know people are going to go online and talk about some of like the punching scenes in the earlier seasons. There's that very infamous sliding down the hill scene and the middle episodes. But a lot of the fights are lackluster too. There's a fight with Flashy Flash and the Speed Ninjas, and it's like just nothing but like wannabe Speed Blitz the whole entire time. They're going back and forth, and it's just like there's no real good connecting hits. Everything is just a screen grab of a punch, a screen grab of a fist, a screen grab of a kick being blocked. It's it doesn't flow well. And comparing that to other seasons, sure, season two, the beginning of the season was kind of lackluster, but it was also the beginning of the season. There wasn't much need for too much high animation. We even get to the point of like the Metal Bat episode in season two, where I think that animation style does real well for Metal Bat's action. The martial arts tournament was a good, not the best, but it was animated pretty well. And it had a lot of cool like character beats. Even though Saitama was kind of growing a little numb during that arc, you see how his brooding strength changes the people in the martial arts tournament, and even changes, what's his name, like Kiru. He changes Kiru for the better. And sure, the last four episodes, or the last three episodes, I think the Garo fight in season two is fire. And I understand that like Saitama beats Sensei with one punch, but it was built up purposely, like really nice. Go back to the GOAT way that we ended season one. Sure, yeah. What is his name? The one-eyed guy from episode 12, Boros. Boros had infinite healing. He had infinite regeneration. So he was able to put up with Saitama, even though Saitama was destroying his body punch by punch, because he had that regeneration, Saitama was able to do a little bit more. And we even got to see Saitama do a serious style fist. And I honestly think that every arc should end with him doing a new serious style attack. It may have shown that like maybe he was kind of getting a little more serious, but like the way that he ends episode 12 with the serious fist was a good cutoff. The serious series was fire. But let's talk about the emotional storytelling in this season two. In season one, there are so many good emotional beats for even small characters. It makes you want to rewatch it so many times. There's Genos. There's the whole entire season is mostly about Genos learning what strength means. It is not just the parts and the power that you can output. The strength is your resolve to be a hero. You get Mugen Rider, who is this Kamen Rider-esque character who is a C-class hero, but he still does the best that he can so the people around him feel safe. He's a true hero. I mean, we even get to make fun of like Supersonic, but he is a ninja. I mean, I'll tell you, even though it's silly, Supersonic's a ninja who's never been bested up to that point, at a time where ninjas have been massacred in the One Punch world. There's a whole episode about learning about like the superiority complex of Speedy Sonic. And I mean, even a lot of like the Deep Sea King, that's more Mugen Rider, even Boros' storyline, when we got the tidbit about Boros being like the ultimate being similar to Saitama, that was good. And I think that's what they should have did. Season two, I think that's actually season two's highlight. It's more of the emotional storytelling. You're learning about Garo. You're learning about how Garo feels as a disciple of Bang and how he feels like he needs to be more. The reason why he wants to become a monster is because he feels like the hero society has become a society of bullies. And he's constantly challenged by the S-class rank heroes. Some of the lower tier heroes are selfish. Some of them are selfish, like behind the shade of heroism. But every time Garo fights an S-class hero in season 2 and then nearly loses or nearly wins, it kind of tells something about that hero being either not as selfish as Garo thinks, or that hero just having an unwavering dedication to justice. And then the heroes that he does beat up are a little bit of bullies, a little bit of like meatheads who are full of themselves. And then when you get to that final fight, like the fighting is amazing. Garo is putting hands to belts to those A and B class. And when they have to fight Centipede, even Centuchoro, even though Centuchoro is a very hard threat for Bang and his brother to handle, that's why you have King and Saitama. Now, that's where my problem for season 2 is. If they would have hammered down like Centuchoro a little bit, gave him a little bit of a plot point, maybe Centuchoro was teased throughout the season of being this monster who only has been beaten once, but has grown too strong to be cocky. Another parallel to Saitama. And I understand like Garo is supposed to be the heel to Saitama in that season, but there should be a little bit more. Like every time you interact with a high level monster in this show, it should be a reflection of like what brute force is in this world. Season 3 do not do this well, not at all. Season 3 does not have the same emotional weight to it. It does not have the same action to it. And as I like to say on this channel, it feels very much like a setup season. I'm looking at the episode list right now, and I'm trying to think, what was the emotional core for this season? Were we supposed to care about the hostages? The ugly kid that Garo's been protecting? Not really invested in that kid. Am I supposed to feel some type of way about the class heroes acting like a bunch of kids? Not really. It's cool to see a little bit of like Tsunami worrying about Tornado. It's kind of cool to start getting those teas to Blast and Metal Knight and all the weird things that's going on with them. And it's cool that like Saitama got to meet Genos' other mentor. But I leave this season not wanting to go back and watch it. I don't leave this season wanting to be like, man, time to rewatch this a few times before season 4 drops. Like it's dull. All they do are trying to plan to attack the monsters. You get a couple of fights with characters that we do not care about. Like, why is Flashy Flash the hero we're following this season? We never spent time with Flashy Flash before. And then the characters that we do care about are just, they're given cameos. Speed of Sonic is given a cameo. Genos is given just talking roles. I don't even think he fights this season. And Garo gets knocked out by Saitama early and just acts like a punk for the rest of the season. Like season 3 is just not fun. And I really hope that, they take this as, hey, we need to really pump it up for season 4. Like we're going to rush this out so season 4 can shift studios and we can get producing so you guys can have it sooner. But overall, One Punch Man season 3 did not leave a good impression on me. I feel like they even wasted Baby Metal in the opening. Baby Metal and Jam Project should be a match made in heaven when it comes to music. But no, they wasted the talents of these two on a season that sucks. But that's my One Punch Man talk, you guys. That's my One Punch Man talk. Let's see where we're going from here, y'all. Let's see. Honestly, today is such a chill day. Like, I hope you guys are just putting me on in the background, listening to me today. It's going to be a real McChill day. Honestly, we're going to do 2 more. I'm going to do another quickie, and then I'm probably going to do my breakdown, and we're probably going to call it wraps today. Just a nice little chill day. Nothing too crazy. So let's do it. Screw it. Let's talk JJK because I am going to eventually do like a mid-season quickie. But let's talk about JJK season 3. Send backwards. Order. Move to the bottom. There we go. Okay, so JJK. Let's see. I have my notes on my phone because I did this one. I was kind of doing this one last night. Okay, so JJK started their 1-hour special yesterday to kick off the Culling Game Part 1. It's really nice to see that we are getting the Culling Game Part 1, or Culling Game split up into 2 different seasons. So I'm hoping that like this first season comes out this year and that next season comes out next year, but they produce the whole seasons back to back. That would be really cool. But we get to see we get to see one of the greatest characters of all time, Yuta, come back in his pivotal return to JJK from since being gone from JJK 0. I'm not going to spoil anything too crazy, but I do like how the season starts. Real quick, if you guys don't know, like catch out JJK on I think on Saturdays or Thursdays right now. It's just the Japanese dub right now, but I believe it is on simulcast this season, so English will be coming very, very quickly. But on that note, I just want to keep it about 3 things when we're talking about JJK. I really just want to keep it about 3 things when we talk about JJK season 3 opener. And that's one, I really love the opening cinematics of this season. I really like that the animators are taking time to show how much Yuji has grown since the last time we've seen him. In the story, I think it's been a couple weeks since the incident. And as you can hear Chozo saying in the episode, my little brother has gotten stronger. His ability to control his cursed energy has gotten so much better. And he kind of alludes that things are things are going to get worse. And you see that Yuji is just handling these big cursed spirits with ease, really showing the growth from like that first season. But hey, what we get in this first episode is Frame by Frame Boy popping up, one of the Zenin clan's heirs. I don't even want to give Naoto his name really because it pissed me off, but we do get to meet the new the hating head of the Zenin, Naoto. I like how there's like a little bit of subtle storytelling with him and his father in the other head houses. If you guys don't know, the Zenin clan is a very misogynist clan. They very look down about the women in the clan. So when you see that family photo, you notice that it's just the heads of the family and all the men. It's really crazy storytelling that they do there. But Frame by Frames gets his little moment beating up Chozo when Yuta pops up and tells Naoto that he can deal with Chozo while he deals with Yuji. The Yuji-Yuta fight is a really amazing fight. A little bit of spoilers. I mean, it's a podcast about an anime, but Yuji loses. But I like how narratively what this fight does. This fight really like shows the difference between a special grade 1 and a special grade sorcerer. Why is Yuta so strong? Because Yuta has a flat control of his energy. He can straight up just make his body feel like he's overwhelming with cursed energy. So it's very hard to track his movements. And because he has such good control over his cursed energy, he can bring it up and bring it down for whatever situation he may need. So I like that. I also am going to give shout outs to Chozo. Chozo is best big brother. I really like this thing with Yuji, and like it started with Toji, and I feel like it was kind of a joke with Gege with Toji. But with Chozo and the rest of the death paintings, like I like how like Yuji is part of that family. And it is a little bit of a hint to his backstory, a little hint to how he was born. But Chozo is such a good brother. I found a TikTok the other day talking about how like Chozo has anti-fraud allegations. He is the best big brother, even though he's done terrible things in his life. He knows he has to do better so he can be a good example for Yuji. And he teaches, like, hopefully we see it in this season. I'm not going to spoil anything for the manga, but Chozo does a lot. Chozo does help the narrative a lot. But ultimately, I do kind of like what Yuji says to Megumin when he's trying to get some reassurance about, like, the lives they've taken. And even though I do like Megumin and Tojo said this last season, that they're Jujutsu sorcerers, their obligations to this world are higher than anybody else could think of. So they can't be judged for their actions. They can only continue going forward and make sure that they're not causing more harm in the world. And I like that. But I also kind of want to, just because for the sake of this podcast and we're making time, I kind of want to ask, is Yuji kind of right? Is it the fact that Jujutsu sorcerers don't value human lives in the same capacity as they view protecting humans from Jujutsu is the reason why they're probably in this mess? One thing that kind of bugged me about the Tengen thing, especially when we were doing the flashback arc, like, why didn't you guys start prepping knowing that Tengen was going through something? Like, why didn't you guys kind of prep or make sure that, like, hey, we're going to make sure that the Star Plasma vessel is born sooner, and we're going to take extra precautions to make sure, like, hey, we're gonna make sure that Tengen's okay. Yuji does, and then Yuji also brings up like we murdered, we've killed, we've done so much, like we need to do like. I don't think Yuji trying to take radical responsibility for the Death Seas cause is the right answer, but I think that there's a little bit of a messaging there about the reason why Jujutsu community is so weird, so messed up, is because of the value of human life. How they don't value the individual human life as much as they value keeping the secrets of Jujutsu and curse energy. So kind of just something for y'all to think about, something to keep in mind on a JJK season 3 opener. So going off of last week, I needed another good show movie to watch for the stream. And honestly, I wanted another like inspirational film to recommend you guys. Something else to kind of get you guys to feel a little more hopeful, feel a little more control in the world, or help some of my older audience kind of like deal with like the menagerie of the world, the boringness. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing? And I say that in the sense that like I watch a lot of TV to escape. I do watch a lot of TV to like get away from my problems. But also I like television or movies that inspire me. Or no, I like movies that kind of get you to think a little bit differently about why we do the things we do in our world, or why the things that we do in our lives. And as a person who's like always, like I've always mentally struggled with like, do I like my job? Do I like the things that I'm doing? Do I like going throughout the world, pursuing a little bit of fame so I can make some money and be comfortable? In the chase of that, am I losing myself? Am I really happy? Am I really wanting, like, I love talking about movies, but do I want to do this for the every day for the next 20 to 30 years? And when I think about it, when I think about the process of living life, the process of reaching your goals, the process of growing, it kind of gets scary. And I'm happy with that fear. It was tackled a little bit when I was watching the movie 100 Meters. And if you guys don't know, 100 Meters is an anime movie that's just been on Netflix for the last couple of weeks. It aired, I believe, to my knowledge, it was released earlier last year in May at a Japanese film festival. It was an adaptation of like a 5-volume manga released in 2019. And then it was released here in America in October this year at a film festival, and later put on Netflix on New Year's Eve. And it's a really good film. 100 Meters is based off Japanese manga, written and produced by Uto. It was serialized for a couple months. And it just tells the story of these two boys, Togashi and Komiya, and 3 points of their lives where they've learned about writing, they learn about running, they learn about, track and field. Togashi and Komiya meet in the 6th grade. Togashi teaches Komiya how to properly run, proper running technique, inspires him to continue his training. The boys meet again in high school, and it just tells those 3 little like high school, and then meet once again as like amateur athletes. And it just shows like the struggle that Togashi has being a naturally born prodigy who's shown up pretty early. And Komiya, who is nothing but raw passion distilled with a little bit of anxiety. So yeah, let's talk about like a couple of good W's of this movie. Real big draw for the movie for me was the fact that this movie is completely rotoscoped. Like 100% from top to bottom, this movie is produced with rotoscope. And if you guys don't know what rotoscope is this animation technique where a filmmaker takes his camera and films a lot of the scenes, and then an animation crew comes in and draws those live action scenes frame by frame, producing a very ultra realistic drawing animation style. And it's done really well. I've seen rotoscoping done when I was younger, and I wasn't a big fan of it because I was a little kid who didn't know much about art. So kind of like having a little kid brain and seeing rotoscoping, I was very turned off on it, but I'm really happy that I watched this film because rotoscoping has gone so far over the last 2-3 decades. Especially rotoscoping when it comes to running, physical, like rotoscoping for just general like movement is one thing to get a more realistic movement out of your actors. But for something action-based, chef kiss. Chef kiss. But you know what? Let's yap about it. Let's talk about it. Let's go on about it. Let's talk about the plot of this movie, and let's start with part number one, when these young men meet in sixth grade. So Togoshi and Komiya meet in sixth grade one day. So Togoshi is like a child prodigy in the sixth grade. You know, when you're in sixth grade and y'all run on the field and y'all run outside, y'all run on the playground. Togoshi was that naturally athletic kid who could run really fast, run faster than most of the kids in his class. Until one day Komiya pops up. He's a transfer student, very nervous kid with shaggy hair. And Komiya is a very like energized kid. The first time they see Komiya run in school, like run in class, he runs like a monster. He has nothing but raw energy. But you can kind of tell that this kid, someone's kind of iffy with him. But every year, these elementary schools have this thing called the sports festival. And Komiya and Takeshi trained for the sports festival together. Takeshi really likes teaching Komiya the proper way to run, the proper technique, and Komiya is getting better every day. Eventually, they win the sports festival together, which is a very big day for both of them. Kageshi finally feeling like there's someone in class who can keep up with him. And Komiya is finding a way to quiet his anxiety through running, through physical exercise. They're a match made in heaven. As the year goes along, there's an upperclassman named Nagami who comes and meets them. Nagami, I believe, is like a first year high school student who's meeting these elementary schools and giving them advice about how to, live life. Hey, you little kids, if you guys feel like you guys are really athletic, you guys want to chase sports, you gotta chase it with your whole body. I say that particular line because in this early life, Togashi gets to sit down and interview Nagami in front of the whole entire class because Togashi is the most talented kid in the class. He gets to interview them for like a sports magazine. And in this interview, that's where Nagami kind of gives Togashi this very stern but inspiring speech about how determined you have to give your all when it comes to running. You have to give every cell, every fiber of your body into running. And that really does hit with Takeshi. The reason I say it hits with Takeshi so well is because I didn't fail to mention this. Takeshi does have this saying that he tells Komiya all the time about how running the 100-meter dash faster than anyone can solve almost any of your problems. And that tied with what Nageshi says to Tagashi really just lets them know that I'm going to put my all into running. After this sports festival, Kogeshi and Komiya have one little final race at the little riverbed, and Komiya wins this first little race, even though he does it very sloppily. Like he tumbles into the victory line, which kind of leaves Takeshi kind of like bewildered. Takeshi kind of like, he's been around Komiya for all this time and Komiya hasn't caught up to him. But this time, Komiya gave it his all and beat Takeshi, kind of breaking Takeshi's worldview. I remember like the next scene is like the next day and Takeshi is coming to class and they learn that Komiya moved away. And this leaves Takeshi just torn. He kind of feels like, I feel like when I was watching the movie, I was getting this sense that Takeshi finally met someone that was there with him, right? Find a rival that really could test him in the world. And he even seen this rival beat him. And now that excitement, that joy is gone. There's no one here challenging Takeshi anymore. And to be honest, through this transition between sixth grade and first year high school, it kind of seems that Takeshi, he still runs all throughout middle school. He still becomes a prodigy in middle school, but you kind of get this sense that because Komiya is not there to challenge him, no one's here to really push him, he kind of just starts losing himself a little bit. He starts losing his passion to run. And that does kind of culminate to their first year of high school where Takeshi is kind of ready to quit. But before we get to the second part of the plot, let's talk about some of these characters. So Takeshi, our main character, our naturally talented kid. He's voiced by a very indie guy. Like I know this guy has had some roles, but his name is Joe Zappelli. Like I'm definitely Zelga. Joe Zelga. He's an American voice actor, Air Force captain. Honestly, he has done a couple of little indie shows. He's in Iron Blood Orphans. He's in Fate, one of the Fate. He plays Achilles. He's in Hunter x Hunter. He actually plays Psyche K in Disaster's Life of Psyche K Reawakening. So he has some, some things under his belt, Achilles and Fate, solid. So he really does bring Takeshi to life as an adult. I'm not really talking about like the kid Takeshi, but Takeshi is just like the really confident kid when you first meet him, the star of his class. And his foil is Komiya, who's this very quiet to himself kid. He's voiced by Mark Wynn, another amateur voice actor. Really solid work though. And Komiya is just this quiet, raw talent. You see Komiya's like design, his character design. He's very timid, very quiet, very chill kid. But he's just nothing but bursting anxiety that just needs to run to get it out. I kind of do resonate with Komiya a lot as a kid. Like I was a kid with a lot of anxiety who needed to always be running and moving in elementary school. But Komiya also has kind of like this self-doubt, this anxiety is already tugging a bit at his self-confidence. And we're going to see that explored a little bit more as the narrative goes on. And then another character that we meet in this first act that is going to be important, especially in the second act, is Nagami. Nagami right now is this child prodigy who Takeshi looks up to. He's a freshman in high school who's just nothing but record breaking, and he's a local celebrity. I didn't really realize how connected a lot of like the Japanese community is, because every little community kind of have these little sports heroes, and it's really nice to see like when everything hits you at freshman year of high school. Nagami is kind of a step forward to what we may be seeing when you do let running take over your whole life, and that's what you think your sole determination is. Now we get to the second part of the plot. We're now in the first year of high school. And as we're seeing Takeshi get into his new school, he's kind of on the verge of quitting running altogether due to no direction. Like I said, it really does feel like ever since Komiya moved out, Takeshi's kind of just been floating. He's been just setting records, been doing the best, but no one's really pushed him. He gets into, it's the beginning of the school year. Some classmates run him down and ask him to join the track and field club. And it's mostly because the track and field club need 5 members to stay open. So, there's already 3. These 2 girls come up to Takeshi and is like, hey, join us. Takeshi is like, nah, I'm not really feeling it. I'm really not trying to run. But when one of the girls kind of pressure him, like, hey, if you're not going to join the club, can I at least watch you run so I can get a few pointers? Takeshi does that sprint down, and he just starts feeling the love again. He starts feeling like he can really feel the wind in his soul again. And he decides he's going to join the club. After kind of talking to the 2 girls and realizing that their 3rd member is kind of a shut-in, Takeshi goes out with them to meet the shut-in, and it's Nagami, the Nagami that inspired him when he was a kid. When they meet Nagami now, Nagami's injured. Nagami hurt his back a couple years ago in a track qualifier, and he's been home bedridden ever since. But Takeshi's like, bro, let's do it. Like, I know you're depressed. I know life has gotten you down, but dude, you're still young. You're still fresh. Let's get back into the field. And same thing, after Nagami and Takeshi do this short little race, and Nagami sees that his time is only 12 seconds, Nagami is inspired to start training again. And you get this really good montage of this high school track team getting back into the rhythm of track and field. Tagashi is back to loving himself. Nagami's back to loving himself. And you even see these guys who dedicated their whole life to track and field do a little balancing in their lives, have a little bit of fun with the people that are around him. And Nagami realizes that he can't push himself too far, especially if he's going to work through this injury. The team itself performs really well at a track meet, and the track and field club is allowed to stay active for a couple more events as long as they're still doing good. But you kind of start getting this feeling that, hey, this team might really make it to nationals, until you get this breaking news report that some random unknown freshman just broke the high school record. Cut to Komiya. Now, we've been following Tagashi for this little part of high school, but we haven't been following Komiya. Where 3 years later, Komiya has moved to the mountains near his school and has been training every day in track and field. It's the first, day of high school, and he's signing up for the track and field team. On the tryouts, Komiya still has his explosive speed, but both the team captain and the side captain realize Komiya kind of loses a lot of his energy towards the middle. After a couple of weeks of noticing this, the team captain, the moving grooves of life goes on. Team captain knows it. And another natural talent comes and visits this high school. An alumni visit this high school while the tracking team is getting settled. And we actually get to meet this other athlete called Zatsu. Zatsu is the head record holder of the 100-meter dash right now. Zatsu comes to Komiya and the Komiya school, and the track and field team is once again allowed to ask Zatsu some questions. And the team captain is allowed to ask first. The team captain is another natural talent, kind of like Tageshi, but a little more self-centered. He kind of acts as Komiya's foil during this part. And the team captain is trying his best because there's a lot of pressure on him. He's a natural talent who got to rise to be team captain only in his second year. So there's a lot of pressure on him. And he has to deal with this raw talent that's not really being produced yet. At this Q&A, the team captain is sitting here and he's asking Zatsu, hey, what do you do to prepare for a meet? And Zatsu is giving, honestly, some of the most erratic, super high level philosophy answers ever. Zatsu's talking about how nervous, I'm always out there. I'm always performing. So why am I going to be worried about this one moment when I need to run? And he's talking very much hey, it's not about how you feel and that nerviness that you feel in the moment. You're going to still have to perform. You still did all this training. Zatsu really does focus on hey, it doesn't matter how you feel before you hit the starting line. You're still going to have to do that 100 meters, and you're going to be judged for what you are after that 100 meters. Zatsu kind of preaches this philosophy. It's all about your result. It's all about your accolades. It's all about what you can produce. And that does give the team captain a lot of anxiety. But on the flip side, Komiya asks Zatsu, what do you do to prepare yourself for these races? How do you, a pro athlete who has all this talent, gets prepared for these races? And I actually like Zatsu's answer. Zatsu tells Komiya, I use it. I use that anxiety so I can enjoy being in the moment. Because anxiety is just your body telling you it's time to grow. It's just telling you that you're ready to grow. And you should use that trigger, that sensation, to grow, to be better, to do better. And I like that mentality because I think young Komiya does take the wrong the wrong impression from it, but it is not the worst thing to think about. Your life is just the things that you produce, the things that you can look upon at the end of the day. It's half of it, but we're going to talk about that other half when Zatsu comes back up around in the narrative. This saying of hey, just be worried about what you produce, what you are at the end of the day, really gives Komiya the idea that he's going to focus on breaking records. He's going to focus on training his mind, body, and soul and beating the national record. And you see this new Komiya appear. Komiya has conquered his anxiety and is pushing through it. And he's beating his own personal best every day at practice. This culminates to the team captain growing jealous of Komiya and basically telling Komiya, hey, you can't keep doing this to yourself. You were breaking your body down, dude. You're running every day. And even though you are getting faster, you are getting a little better. If you don't check your passion, if you don't check that raw energy, you're going to hurt yourself. And then you're going to push yourself until your body explodes. First place is never going to be enough. Your body is going to give out. And Komiya says, especially with that thing of Zetsu in the back of his head, that, hey, you're telling me that even if I train hard enough, can just have one moment of glory? Crazy. I put that on my Instagram story this week. Fire. These two parallel events conjoin at the high school interim, where Tagoshi, Nagami, and Komiya are all racing. You start this off with watching Nagami and Komiya actually race, and Komiya just burning out Nagami, who feels like he tried so hard, tried so so deep on his comeback journey just to get smoked by a freshman who has no track experience. It changes the mood of the whole narrative for a little bit. But it also gets Tagashi excited. He hasn't seen Komiya since they were kids. And he wants to see if he can beat him yet. He wants to see if this kid who barely beat him last time, barely got one over him, can still give him that push. And we see this interim high school race happen. And I'm telling you, visually, y'all, fire. I love the camera movement of watching the whole meet. Like, I've seen Olympic racers before. I've seen track meets before. I did track in middle school. But to see a high level track event be accurately depicted in anime, chef kiss. When you see this race, you see Komiya dust Tagami, where Tagami is heaving and panting at the end of the race that he just won. Komiya is unfazed. Komiya ends this race in the rain, with the rain overflowing your ears, telling Tagetsu, your running style has changed. And that makes it feel like that's the reason why Tagetsu lost. And it sits with Tagetsu for a really long time. So long that as this rain is pouring out, we get a white cut to 10 years later. One of the most jarring cuts ever. I mean, it's almost that Avengers Endgame 5 years later cut. Just such a solid transition. But that is the end of these kids, the end of seeing these kids in their high school and their young adult lives. And it's crazy. You really get this sense that Takeshi feels like he's been passed up, especially after feeling like you put so much effort in your comeback to get so effortlessly beat by a kid who you trained, who did it just like that. You definitely sense Takeshi feeling this weight of life hitting him. I do kind of want to have a little tidbit, a little powwow about Zatsu as a character, because Zatsu represents unbridled results in this narrative. Zatsu is the record holder of the 100-meter dash here in this narrative. And he serves as unbridled results and how that can't be taken away from you. In the long run, is the accolades that you get, the medals, the records that you set, the numbers that you beat are yours to own. That is something that someone can't take away from you. You were the fastest person in Japan once upon a time. You were the best fighting game person in the world once upon a time. That does, like, just because someone beat your record doesn't mean that those accolades aren't yours. Those are hard work. Just hard work etched into words. But we do cut into 10 years later. And the first thing that we see 10 years later is my boy Togeshi barely making the cut for his race team. We're catching this man at 24, I believe. Barely making the cut for his professional racing team. And he has to get it together this year before he just loses it. He has to go find a new job. And in a world where racing has been his whole identity, who is Takeshi at the end of the day? Takeshi's manager suggests that he goes to a company event and talks to some veteran racers, some racers at the top of their game to get some advice. And Takeshi begrudgingly goes to this meeting and he meets a racer, a very older racer. I want to say, like, we meet Kaido, and Kaido's probably in his early to mid 30s. But as an athlete, he's pretty much geriatric. And we meet Kaido and we learn the narrative around Kaido. Kaido, the seasoned racer, is pretty much the third or fourth best racer in his world. But no one cares about the third, fourth, or fifth best racer. They care about the best and who's right after the best. And the narrative has always been about Zetsu, and Komiya. 10 years later, Zetsu and Komiya are the two best racers in Japan. And Kaido, who has had a very much sports protagonist life, has lived in a world where these two youngsters have always been ahead of him. Takeshi, looking for some life advice, asks Kaido, how do you keep running, dude? How do you keep going? How do you keep going about it every day? And Kaido kind of tells him this kind of cryptic saying at the company event. As long as you understand your reality, you can run to escape it. It's a very cryptic way of saying it, but Kaido does continue with it at a practice meet just a few days later about how he talks about how when he was a high schooler, freshman year, he was naturally talented. And he trained all 3 years to be the best runner ever. And his senior year of high school, Kaido runs and he gets second to a freshman named Zetsu, who's never ran before. And Kaido talks about how like that really did mess with his brain for a while. But he realized that just because Zetsu is this fresh kid who's technically faster than him, doesn't mean that he's still not one of the best racers of all time. And he continues to race to prove that. Because he knows eventually one day with all this hard work and dedication, he's going to lap these people in front of him. His reality might have these two people always racing in front of him, always in front of him, always, back to head to his face. But if he can accept that these guys are faster, then he can take the steps to get faster than them. He can figure out this facts, the statistics, all what they're doing, and he just needs his determination to get past it. And it's such a powerful thing. Let's do that character beat on Kaido real quick. Kaido is just running. Kaido is fulfilled at what you do and pushing yourself every day to be the best that you can be, no matter what your role is. Kaido is kind of the fulfilled man in his career, knowing that every day to the day that his legs give out, he's going to run because that's what he loves to do. That's what he wants to do. And it doesn't matter who's in front of him because he's racing to escape it. He's racing to escape all of it. And as long as he has that determination and he doesn't give up, he knows he can beat it. Kaido is super fire. Now, this all culminates to the Japan Yearly Nationals, where all of the best runners meet for this national meet. Takeshi, after being inspired by Kaido's words, trains so hard over the year, he becomes the number 2 of his company. And he's officially able to qualify for national championships. But we do have like this last minute tragedy strikes where during a random training day, he gets hit with a muscle sprain. The doctor recommends him to sit out. And Takeshi kind of has this like breakdown moment. He sits at a park not knowing what to do with his life because he's been running literally every day since he was 6. And the national qualifiers that he's been working all his life is next week. So what is Takeshi supposed to do? Honestly, I kind of like what the narrative does. Takeshi breaks down. He cries in the middle of the park and he realizes that if this is his reality, he has to race to escape it. He calls Nagami and asks Nagami, give me your best doctors. I just need to be patched up. I just need to be patched up for 3 more races. Patch me up. Let's do this. And Komiya goes to the national meet. Takeshi goes to the national meet with Komiya. They meet all of their peers, and it's a very exciting energy in the air. Tagomi races, and he's the second best in his meet. He pretty much ties with his teammate and proves that, hey, he still has it. But we get to now meet Komiya, who is one of the best racers in Tokyo at this point. And he's racing against Zetsu. Also in this meet is Kaido in this like race section. And these 3 race. During this qualifier, as he's watching, I do have to say that before this meet, Zetsu and Komiya meet one more time and they have a small conversation. Komiya is the best racer pretty much. And he's determined to beat Zetsu at this time. But Zetsu's kind of like in a different headspace, so many years later after meeting Komiya and giving Komiya those words because he remembers Komiya. And he talks about, I should have never told you those words all those years ago, how you should really just race for the results, race for your own accolades. Because at the end of the day, he's like, I'm 25, 26. Who's beside me? I've raced all these years and who's really beside me? Who are my friends? Who are my family? Who are the people who care about me? And Zetsu really does talk about this thing as an adult that like, even though he has all these accolades, he has all of these things that he can point to that shows that, hey, yo, like I have this very accomplished life. he realizes at the end of the day that doesn't matter if you don't have people beside you, if you don't have friends, you don't have family. I mean, even in the racing game, if you don't have rivals that you're always challenging yourself with, it gets lonely running that 100-meter dash. And Zetsu is kind of at the end of it. They race Zetsu, Kaido, and Komiya. And as they're racing, you're seeing Zetsu and Komiya at the top. There's also this scene where like all the people around Japan are talking about how these two are in it to win it. But as the race goes down, Kaido locks in and just shoots past those two. And the shock of Kaido passing both Komiya and Zetsu gets Zetsu to waver, and Zetsu ends up becoming 5th place at this national meet that he's been 1st place every year for. This shakes everybody to their core in the narrative. Togeshi is hyped because he's going to have a chance to race Komiya again. Komiya is frazzled because for years, he has been trying to race for results, and he just got beat by a guy who used nothing but sheer determination. And Zetsu is broke because as he's already questioning his worldview, his senpai, the guy that he's been beating, his senpai just passed him. Everyone is kind of raw right now. And we're getting ready for this next race. Komiya is all over the place, and he has a conversation with Togeshi. Kaido is bashing in his glory. Man is just drinking his little coffee in a little cafe like, I did it, y'all. And then we also get to meet Zetsu as he's retiring. I'm going to talk about Zetsu retiring in the speech that he gives, because he still gives this airy, off-the-cuff answer about how racing is just about leaving it all on the track. Racing is about putting every emotion, every failing, every doubt, every victory on that track and proving it. And he says, I don't got to prove it no more. I got it. I got to live my life now. Komiya and Togeshi do share some last words in this conversation where Komiya asks Togeshi, like, what is this all for? What are we doing this all for? What are we talking all, like, what are we doing all of this for? And Togeshi gives Komiya those same words he gave them years ago, knowing that Komiya is at this, like, very crossroad of his life. He says, hey, running the 100-meter dash faster than anyone else can solve almost anything. Komiya is like, but how does this solve me being so anxious, me having all this doubt, all this energy, all this doubt in the world? And Togeshi tells him, if you don't feel happy running, if you've never felt happiness running, you've never felt happiness pouring your heart and soul onto the track, I hope with this reminder, you can do it with this next race. And let's prove that it's not about it's just this feeling of not proving who is the best, but proving that these athletes are real athletes, that they're runners first and foremost. You see this last race, and it's amazing. It is produced so well. You get to, like, it's these little black flash scenes of, like, this race will be decided in 10 seconds. And then the gun shoots off. You see everybody running, and it's just do. It's just like you get so close to the screen. You see the wind brushing against these guys. And as you're seeing the wind brush through these two longtime rivals' hairs, you finally see something that you've never seen on many of these characters. A genuine smile. In the last moments of this race, the race that we do not know who the true winner is, you finally seen these two young men who have dedicated their life to running, looking like they're enjoying running for the first time. And it's truly freaking beautiful. Instead of offering a clear winner or loser, 100-meter lets you know that these characters are runners first and foremost, and no accolades can take that from them. And I thought that was a really freaking fire message. Visually, this movie goes off, y'all. Like, I think I talked about it a little bit earlier, but the rotoscoping is the main draw to really watch this movie from an art perspective. Rotoscoping has gone so far over these last couple of years, you really get to see the milestones in this. But in a story beat, it really does match. The somber tones, the pastel colors, the slowness between the races really drive this narrative of the answers about life are not solved or given to you when you're given purpose as a little kid. You have to actively solve them throughout your life. And sometimes your purpose of life is going to change. But as long as you know As long as you know why you do the things you do, you're always going to be a winner. But yeah, that is 100 meters on Netflix. Please go check it out. It is such a solid movie, and I had such a good time watching it. But if you guys are now just catching, hey, that's the end of the podcast right now. We are done with our breakdown. And it was a grand old time, people. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. Thank Kuro for chatting in the chat with us. On that note, we're getting towards the end of our podcast, y'all. This was a real chilled podcast today, guys. Really just content-only. Just wanted to talk about the Vince Staples show, talk about One Punch Man, talk about JJK, talk about Tomb Raider, Robin Hood, X-Men, and break down 100 meters. Such a solid, good movie. This week, we will be having the 100 meter breakdown up on YouTube